Let's see. We are live. Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Stormybman Friday night chop session. And this evening, April 5th, 2019, Friday night, I have a nice panel with me. I've got my co-host, Hyphy, and Curtis Anderson, and also my brother, the Odd Fella, has joined us to chop it up this evening on this Friday night, the end of the week, where we can present some boxing talk to you people and also some interaction. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce everyone on the panel there, and they can open their remarks by just greeting everybody. Odd Fella, you want to go first, brother?
Yes, indeed. Once again, thank you for sending that link. You know what I mean? It's an honor to get on the panel with a wealth of knowledge. You know what I mean? Especially from you and Kurt Anderson. Can't forget my boy Hyphy. You know what I mean? He holds it down. You know what I mean? Always. You know what I mean? Spectacular in LDBC. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? A thorough member. Understand that. So salute to the whole panel. Salute to the chat. Salute to the LDBC, and let's get it, you know what I mean?
All right. How about you, Curtis? You want to introduce yourself, brother? Say hello.
Yep, yes, sir. Welcome to the Stormybman show. My name is Curtis Anderson. You could everybody calls me Kurt Sugar. You know, I'm on World Breaker Fighting, 2:30 Eastern Time, Monday through Fridays. I have a show called Kurt Sugar versus the World, you know, where we debate on a variety of topics. That's 10 o'clock at night, Tuesdays, Thursdays. I'm going to start being more consistent. But, you know, I welcome everybody to the Stormybman show. And I'm just a fly in the ointment. I just love talking boxing. And we're going to kick off the show. You know, welcome all.
All right. And also, my man and my co-host who's helping me out tremendously behind the scenes, Hyphy, you want to say hello? Greet everybody that's out there.
Yeah. I'm up in here, y'all know what I mean? What's up to everybody in the chat coming through? Yo, I know it's been a little challenging because boxing is in a drought right now, but we're going to bring y'all some fire. Y'all already know how I come through, and y'all know how everybody else on the panel come through. So, yeah, we definitely going to bring y'all some heat. Let's y'all know what I mean? Let's just go ahead and kick it off. We can get right into this boxing and everything else y'all want to talk about. I want to hear from the chat. Y'all let me know what's up.
Yes, sir. Yes, indeed. And we just got joined by Abel Mahari. I want to say hello to Abel and welcome to the Friday night chop session with Stormybman. You want to say hello to the people that's out there in the chat? Abel, we are going to start our show with a lot of chat interaction. I know the people have been waiting to see, chomping at the bit to see what Stormybman's channel had to say. So you want to say hello and introduce yourself, brother?
Hey everybody, name's Bill Mahar in the house there, man. Representing my channel is gonna be named now Mahari Nation Sports / Radio, and I just came back from the from US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis for all the Final Four practices. I got some short clip videos and got some live stream interactions on my Facebook page. So y'all go ahead and check that out. You can follow me on Facebook at Abil Mahari. And they're also on Instagram on Mahari Nation 23 and on Twitter, Mahari Nation 3. So y'all can check out all that exclusive heat for you, man. We ready for the Final Four this weekend. I'm excited.
All right. Put that basketball in the basket, man. We are going to talk boxing. So put that around and close that court down for right now, okay? That's good.
Yes, sir.
All right. So,
Yes,
first of all, I want to say shout out to the chat out there. I see we've got 88 Sports Talk. We got Mark Wunderlich. We got Focus Ball. And I want to say thanks to everybody that's coming by. We're coming to the end of the week. And I want to find out, even though we just got a couple people out there in the chat, is there something that anybody who's in the chat there has had this week coming to the weekend that they would like to voice, or a subject that they want to touch on? because we're here now to be involved and interact with you, whereas you know, some of the other channels, they get full with so many members and everything, they can't address everybody's concerns or interests. So we want to open that up for you.
All right, I guess I can go first. I did check out the replay of Black Fight Fan TV's live interaction and stuff like that with I forgot her name, Tiffany, Tony, and Miss Boxing Fanatic too this morning. No man, about the interview with Clarissa Shields and things of that sort. My thing is this though, man. You know, Clarissa. I just wanted to say that Clarissa is now entering into a new world where she's now become the face of women's boxing. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, she's going to get a lot of hate because one, she's a woman, and two, she's black. But the one thing I wanted to say for her is if she can hear me, is just focus on your craft, focus on what you do best, and all the love and respect is going to come with it.
Yeah. And I'm certain that even if she's not catching our broadcast, she's definitely paying attention to what's happening with the LDBC. And I will acknowledge that I have also aligned myself with the LDBC. And the one thing I want to put out there is that my focus for the channel that I'm running is on boxing. So if it's women boxing, we're going to talk women boxing too. There's no discrimination. We're not going to, like push it to the side like there's no interest for it or anything like that. We want to big up the ladies of boxing because they work as hard as the men do. Sometimes some of them may work even harder. So I want to acknowledge that. And I did a video this week. If anyone out there hasn't had a chance to check it out, please go back and review my video on the Clarissa Shields, Christina Hammer showdown that's taking place April 13th. And I wanted to acknowledge those women's place in boxing presently, and also the lineage of what women's boxing has been before they have arrived on the scene. And I even did a special collage for my video intro that acknowledges that, and it shows some of the more popular women in recent memory in boxing. So I'm definitely trying to do something that will definitely pay homage and respect to what's going on, because they are a part of the sport. Fella, do you have anything you'd like to say about the ladies of boxing, or what's happening with the Clarissa Shields and Christina Hammer match? Do you have any interest in that at all, or any comment?
Yeah, most definitely. This is we need to be built. Well, not we personally, but us as a whole need to be building up this match a little bit more, because it's kind of almost falling under the radar. In the dig, and this is a big matchup. You know what I mean? This is a big matchup for boxing. Period. We have a undisputed fight that's taking place, and it's not being talked about as much as it should be. In the dig. So salute salute Black Fight Fan TV. I like what he's doing over there in Dallas and whatnot. You know what I mean? I like what he's been doing over the last couple months, especially in the dig. But he's really unifying and uniting everybody. You know what I mean? And especially the boxing queens. You know what I mean? The queens of the LDBC. You know what I mean? Because it's important that we get the opposite sex in on the game as well. You know what I mean? Because they're a vital part to our culture. So it's good that he's included, you know what I mean, some of our boxing queens in the community, as well as shedding light on our biggest boxing queen, which is Clarissa Shields. Now, initially, I was a naysayer saying that Lady Hammer was going to take this fight. Now, I've recently recanted off of those statements, and I believe that it's going to be a real good fight, but I believe Clarissa Shields has this one, and I wouldn't be surprised if she stops Lady Hammer after what I saw in that fight against Anne-Marie Mathis, or no, Anne-Sophie Mathis, that it was a disqualification loss for Mathis, but in my opinion, that it should have been a knockout win for Mathis. You know, dig. So if anybody wants to go check that fight out, that will show you, give you some exposures and some details on what Christina Hammer actually is. You know, dig. So great fight, undisputed middleweight champion for women's boxing. I mean, salute to that. You know what I mean? That's my take.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How about you, Kurt? You have anything you like to touch on regarding the upcoming match with the ladies, or anything in general to say about the ladies in the sport right now and what's happening?
Yeah, I just want to say I used to, I still do, uh, follow women's boxing. I remember Lucille Riker, from Holland, and I thought she was a terrific fighter. Mia St. John's was okay. Then you had boxing when it was at its pinnacle, when Layla Ali was out there, and Christy Martin. Layla Ali, because of that last name, her father, Christy Martin, they promoted her very well because they put her on the undercard of Mike Tyson fights. Mike Tyson was so popular that the first untelevised card, people was in the audience, and they put her as the co-main event or the third fight, and she was great. She was very exciting. Coal miner's daughter, I believe that was her nickname, and she fought Layla Ali. That was a very popular fight, but Ali was just too big for her. And Ali and Joe Frazier's daughter fought, which shed some light on the women's boxing. The people wanted to see Ann Wolf versus Layla Ali, but I don't think Layla Ali was too anxious to get in the ring with Ann Wolf. That fight would have been huge for women boxing. They need that one fight that it captures the public imagination. This fight should be on a bigger stage, but it is what it is. That's all they have to do, is get the ball rolling, and this fight is a step in the right direction. It's going to be a very competitive fight. Is history in the making. I'll be watching. I'm very interested, and Shields and Hammer, you have breakers out there, so you have some quality woman fighters, but this fight next week, I believe, is going to do women's boxing well. So this fight can carry the torch and the momentum for other bigger fights and the sport of boxing female.
Yes, sir. I agree. My feelings about this match in particular is, I think this is the biggest match that the ladies division of boxing has had. When you have two champions like this who actually have the success to support what their status is in the sport. I mean, because you can always have champions, but even more so for Clarissa Shields, because her accomplishments in the Olympics were wonderful. I mean, for her to be the first and only, Olympian to win the back-to-back gold medals for the U.S. like that, and to then get into the professional ranks and then go and secure titles in a couple of divisions already. She is really well represented, and she has a claim. I mean, and she has a claim to the stakes of what they're fighting for, and it's legitimate because she has earned that in the ring. The other lady, she's been around a few years longer, and she's had some success, but I don't think that she has faced someone who has the pedigree that Clarissa has. And it's like she said wonderfully in her interview with Black Fight Fan. She said, this woman gives me, I've faced opposition like her many times over. bigger, stronger, people with jabs, people who could fight, people who were, able to present challenges. And I persevered. And I had to applaud her for that because her acknowledgement of where she had come from is something to be equated with someone who has the confidence and walks like a champion. And I have a great deal of respect for her, Clarissa Shields, for representing herself that way. And I hope that she continues to have the success to go along with that, because we really need that in the sport. And her being a woman of color, it happens to be something to really hang our hats on and hold our hands up high. We really should support her and get behind her, because I think we're seeing some history here. Whereas in the past, there have been some people who were successful, like, that didn't get the notoriety in the proper manner. Like, you take a Ann Wolf, who was a really tremendous fighter when she was doing her thing, but the spotlight just wasn't there. Or you take a Layla Ali, who had that name, but maybe not the skill set that Clarissa can say that she has, and be at the top of the sport. So now we really have Serena Williams, so to speak, of boxing. She's there. She can bring it. She can. There are men that she can beat, and that's not even to challenge the sexes. It's about her ability and what she's accomplished. And I salute that. I applaud that. And it's one of the reasons I made that video. And if anyone out there has had a chance to watch my video, please do. Not that I'm hyping myself, but it was an homage to what we're witnessing here with this match that's coming up, that I really want people to see that, and I want them to feel the fire and the heat of that and get behind it and support it. Because sometimes when you can catch something like this, you look back through history and you say, man, I was proud to be a part of that. But other times when you can see something happening and you don't jump on board and snatch it while that's hot, you kind of say, man, I wish I had paid more attention, and history passes you by. So I think we're in a moment now where we have a talent in the female division who has earned and deserves the accolades. And because she is a woman of color, there's always going to be a struggle with that, which is why we even more so need to push and press for her and give her that love and respect that she has earned and she deserves. So that's where I stand on that. So Hyphy, do you have anything you would like to say about the fight that's coming up, the battle with Clarissa Shields and Christina Hammer?
Hey, well, look, let me take a different direction, and I'm gonna still elaborate on this whole, women's praise that you're giving, because I definitely feel that the women's sports in general, definitely boxing, just needs to be praised more. I wish they would have actually did a press conference in Germany also, because women's boxing is bigger over there. But as far as you brought up something I really, really like, Ann Wolf. Now, I watched some Ann Wolf fights this week. I also, was just checking out other women's boxing. Layla Ali, she ducked the shit out of Ann Wolf. we can't deny that. She ducked the shit out of Ann Wolf. Her whole career, she ducked Ann Wolf badly. And yeah, I'm not letting that slide. She ducked. We calling out these people, what I'm saying, other ducks. She ducked. As far
Oh,
as
I
this
agree
fight,
with you there. I agree with that 100%.
yeah, yeah. Man, I like Ann Wolf, hella tough. But yeah, Layla D, man, you messed up the goddamn Ollie name. You was ducking so goddamn much. You ducked. But anyways, to this fight, yeah, I agree with what our fellas said. It should just be more promotion in general about this fight. Y'all, it's not as much as we like, but I definitely give Clarissa, she doing her thing as far as the promotion. Hammer, she probably doing her thing as well. So, they doing it. It's just in general, I feel it's going to take time for like boxing fans and the public in general to just really, catch on. But, I can't say the ladies, they not doing anything as far as the promotion. But you know, this is one of those things we got to get past this quote unquote drought right now. Do y'all feel like it's a drought in boxing right now because no fights coming up this week and last week the fights were horrible?
I don't feel like it's a drought, but I can understand why you would feel that way. But we've been in the first quarter of the year, we've been inundated with some good boxing and a lot of it. So I don't necessarily feel that it's a drought, but I do feel like there is a thirst for what has not been happening. And it's a consistent theme that we find ourselves coming back to discuss. And that's the quality of fighters at the top of the sport continuously not facing one another in multiple divisions. If that were just to start to take place, even when you have subpar cards like what was witnessed last week or a couple of weeks ago, you know, with the Pulev and all of that, you know, the sport would have that shot in the arm that it really deserves, because you have people at the top of the sport facing off. That's quality, and you can you can accept some subpar cards in between if you know you're getting the quality. If you're not getting the quality and you get an overdose of the subpar cards, that makes you feel like the sport is dying, the sport is not thriving, the sport is not where it could be, and many other comments that people make about it. I really feel that strongly, and that's why we should press forward uh, for those quality matches. Like what was mentioned earlier in the week, that Jamel Charlo is now going to be fighting Brandon Adams, who Triple G was looking to have as an opponent also. And my thing that I had said and even made a video on was, why weren't they just trying to fight each other? Well, we know why. And I'm not trying to question that at the moment, but I'm saying here we go again with another subpar, you know, challenger to a man or a champion that's worthy of a better challenge. And that would be Jamal. He should be fighting the likes of a Andrade or a Triple G or whatever. But these guys, they're just, for whatever reason, they're not facing each other. And I don't want to hear that aspect about the promoters and all of that, because when two champions, they have different promoters or whatever, if they really want to face each other, there's really nothing those promoters can do to stop them from facing each other. Okay, they can face each other, and that's just not happening right now. And because the purses are higher now, fighters are just not as hungry as they used to be in, you know, in past times. The purses are now where they could fight once or twice a year and sit back and live good. That's those at the top of the sport. The journeymen and the fringe contenders, and sometimes the lower rated contenders, they still have to earn their keep to try to keep money in their pocket and feed their families. But those men at the top, they're not starving. So that's what's taking over in the sport too. Odd fella, what do you think about that?
As far as yeah, the state of the game right now, yeah, I wouldn't say it's definitely like it's in a drought or nothing like that, but it is in somewhat of a lull in action, or lull in those 5-star fights that we want to see. I agree with that. But moving on to this whole situation with Jamal Charlo, how he's fighting Brandon Adams. I don't like it at all. I don't like the fight that Brandon Adams is pretty much in a situation where he's in a bidding war between him and Charlo and Triple G. And like you were saying earlier, why aren't these two fighting each other? You know what I mean? The WBC ordered it, and I know we can't. Of course, I even made a video about Triple G and his duck tendencies, DuckTales Reloaded. Y'all go check that out. But I don't really hear that smoke from Jamal Charlo. You know, dig? He's been kind of mum on the situation and pretty quiet, and now it comes to light that they've both been bidding on the same guy, Brandon Bum-Ass Adams. I don't know much about this Adams guy. I know he won some type of contender tournament, but really, is he on the levels of, you know what I mean, the top flight middleweights? You know what I mean? I could probably name some a lot more middleweights that I'd rather see Jamal Charlo in there with, including a Canadian. You know what I mean? Salute to the brothers on the north side. But Stephen Butler is ranked number 10 in the WBC. And the last time I checked, Jamal Charlo still had that interim, that janky little strap that he got, that interim WBC strap that he needs to drop. So, I mean, I'm definitely not feeling this fight. There's other opponents out there that, you know what I mean, that he could possibly, you know what I mean, that could be more of a prevalent, more of a 5-star fight, so to speak. But yeah, this Brandon Adams fight, I can't get up for it. I can't get excited about this. You know, dig. Charlo, like let me blow some smoke in the Charlo's direction, because the fact that he's mum on the Golovkin situation, I haven't heard nothing from him in 2019, and the fact that he's his own promoter, you know, dig. I don't. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he is his own promoter, so he needs to be a little bit more vocal on what his plans are and who he's looking to fight and what his future. You know what I mean? What his future holds. You know, dig. So that's all I got to say about that. You know what I mean? Just a little shit I'm kicking Charlo's way, because I know a lot of times a lot of the mandem in the LDBC be caping for him. You know what I mean? Maybe it's a Texas thing or whatever. But yo, your North Side brother, the R filler, always got that smoke for everybody.
Yeah, there you go. I'm gonna get on his ass too.
I hear you, R fella, and I haven't had a chance to check out your DuckTales yet, but I need to check that out, because this sounds like your DuckTales could be part one to my video that I did recently on these two guys trying to fight over this guy as an opponent instead of trying to make a deal with each other. How crazy does that sound? Where you got two men trying to, let's just say that he's a lesser opponent, okay? Adams. Two champion profile types are vying for the services of a lesser fighter instead of each other.
Ridiculous.
I mean, it would be different if it was like guys were lined up and they didn't have, you know, but they're both trying to get that guy. It's like, I want him because I know I can whoop his butt, you know, but what about each other? You know, trying to get Triple G in the ring with quality opposition, or someone that it could be a 50-50 fight, or where you can't guarantee or assure him a victory, is like trying to put a cat in a tub of bath water. It's like, he ain't gonna do it. He ain't going. And it's ridiculous, man. They need to make those damn fights. Curtis, what do you have to say on that subject?
You know, I came up in an era where the undercards were stacked. You know, there was quality fight after quality fight. This is 2019. Boxing is structured differently. You know, boxers are not cut like that as men. You know, having strong character and integrity. They don't even like to give interviews. Before, you go walk up to the fighter, talk with them. You know, you can't do that now. But it's not the quantity. There's many fights. You have a very good fight that a lot of people don't know about. Regis Prograis versus Relic. That's a damn good fight. That's April 27th. You know, May, you know, you got some good fights. I'll be surprised if the Khan fight is competitive, because people saying he gonna get Crawford some problems, but this is not the Khan of 2013 or 14. I was never big on Khan anyway. This is 2019, and Crawford's at the top of his game. You could say Granados and Garcia. You know, you have fights coming up. You know, Shields and Hammer next week. You know, you got one of my favorite fighters, Noya Anui, fighting Emmanuel Rodriguez for the unified bantamweight title. You know, you don't get many unifications anymore. You got Hurd coming up. You know, both of the Charlos will be in action in June, even though I don't like Brandon Adams, but I love Charlo and Harrison rematch. That's going to be exciting. But the problem with boxing is there's not enough fights that captures the public's imagination. You know, like a Leonard Hearns, Tyson Holyfield, De La Hoya and Trinidad. Even though the fight was disappointing, you don't have those fights anymore. You know, Joshua and Wilder should have been made. Spence and Crawford is the right time this year to be made in the fall. It's the right time if, you know, Crawford wins. It's hot. It gets no hotter than that. You know, Fury and Wilder should have been made. Ortiz, Dillian White should have been made. You need a fight or a fighter to drive the sport of boxing, because boxing is an underhanded sport. When it's hot, it's on fire. You know, when you have the likes of a Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson, you know, boxing will be A1. That's the way it is, because you have those type of personalities. You know, if you ordered a pizza the night of Tyson fought, you didn't get no pizza because the pizza was sold out. That's how big boxing is, and the fighter. But you need that fighter to carry the fighter, the sport on his back. You know, Mayweather was a super duper star. He did it the hard way. You know, he came up, you know, through divisions and fighting tough guys like Henry Brucelis and Victoriano Sosa, you know, Carlos Hernandez. So it took him a while. He had to get De La Hoya out the way. Then he became a star. So when you have that ingredient in the sport of boxing, you know, the casual person will enjoy it. Nobody who people who didn't like boxing, everybody knew who Sugar Ray Leonard was. He's beyond Bob Hope special. I'm showing my age, but Bob Hope specials were very big for network TV. Muhammad Ali was on Dean Martin Roast. So we have fights in April, May, June, but it's the quality that's missing, that's hurting the sport of boxing.
Absolutely. I want to say shout out to El Chinito in the chat there. He's got plenty of conversation to add to what we're talking about. He was asking, what about Taylor versus Baranikik? He's talking about how good that would be, and he's also mentioned Prograis and you know, those I can't pronounce them guys' names, man.
Really?
Ivan Baranchik, I believe his name is.
Yeah,
and Josh Taylor out of Scotland, ain't he?
Yeah, but El Chinito is making some good points about those are good fights, even at the lower weight classes, you know, and something that even I do have to say this honestly, the LDBC is kind of guilty of ignoring those guys. But the lower weight classes also help the sport, because when they have those gentlemen fighting, and a lot of times you see barn burners. It's just like the fight that's coming up, the rematch between what's his name? Ron Visai
and Estrada.
Yeah, Estrada, yeah. Those two guys, they fought toe to toe, like in the phone booth, man. And Estrada is saying that he's coming into the rematch. He in the first fight he was limited with leg injury, so you know those two guys were like Morales and Barrera, man. It's like we're talking about good quality fighting there, and you know sometimes when you can't get what you're asking for at the top, you can kind of peel down a little bit and see what holds the top up, the foundation. You know, these little guys. And I think they should get their shouts out. And I think they should get some exposure, because I'll tell you, some of the best scraps I've seen have been from the lower weights. What do you have to say about that, fella?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Yeah, them super flies, them flyweights and whatnot. There's some good fights down in those divisions, but they definitely get slept on because a lot of us dudes can't relate because you know what I mean, but due to the size of them and due to the fact that most of them are over on the other side of the world and whatnot. But to be a true boxing fan, we gotta know, you know what I mean. We gotta check out all these cats in the day. So I'm kind of disappointed, although albeit it is a good fight between Rung Vasai and Estrada. I was hoping to actually see Rung Vasai against Jerwin Ankahaz, who's a one of the belt holders in the super flyweight division, and he's the IBF belt holder, but fortunately he's under top rank. But they was trying to make that fight happen, but unfortunately, Rumvasai went to the zone, and network politics canceled that fight. And now we seeing the fight, the rematch against Estrada, which is a good consolation. So yeah, definitely be on the lookout for that fight. You know what I mean? Because it's gonna be some fireworks.
Yes, I'm sorry, guys. I was muted. Yes, yes, yes. Abel has rejoined us. Abel, we were just talking about some of the lower weight classes and their contributions to the sport and how maybe we should give them a little more shine because of what they bring. One of the things that's fascinating about the lower weight classes that I find, gentlemen, is that the lower weight classes with powerful men, they're dynamic. It is spectacular to see a man that's 115, 120 pounds knock another guy unconscious. It's like unbelievable because I'm a big guy myself, 6'2", 245 pounds. And it's like, you see them little guys like that cracking someone on the jaw and putting them to sleep. It's impressive, man. And a lot of times they do it with more precision and skill because of, they don't have as much mass to move around and everything, and it looks so damn dynamic. It's impressive. What do you say, Kurt?
Yeah, man. I always my father, when he schooled me about the sport of boxing, he made sure I know everything, not only the heavyweights or the commercial fighters that was popular. One of my favorite fights is from the lighter weight divisions, which was Rafael Gomez versus Lupe Pintor. That was on the undercard of Tommy Hearns and Rafael Benitez in '82, I believe. Yeah, and those guys was great. I was hooked. Salvador Sanchez versus Rafael Gomez. Man, it was great because the build up to the fight. Gomez used to talk a lot. He said he was going to knock Salvador Sanchez out, but Sanchez knocked him out. When he came out the locker room, they were dueling bands, salsa versus mariachi. You know, and it was great. The fight, lived up to expectations, and you know, um, so the lighter weight divisions, Gomez, Danny Little, Lopez, Salvador Sanchez, Bobby Chacon, Rafael Bazooka Lamone, Rolando Navarrete, Cornelius Boza Edwards. If you take time to look at their fights, they gave you some of the best fights you will ever see. And there was another guy from Thailand. He was a knockout artist. They used to call him the Thai Tyson. Kyosai Galaxy. He had a twin brother. His record was like 49-1 with like 42, 43 knockouts. So I never ignored the lighter weight division, but it was just an obscurity for the average boxing fan.
Yes, yes. So, Abel, now that you're back with us, do you have something to say about anything that you've seen or like or sticks out to you about the lower weight classes?
Oh yeah, I do. The one thing I always respect about the lower weight classes is that you know how how tough they are, but also you know how well crafted they are, even as a lower weight class too. You know, forever my favorite trilogy in the lower weight classes is always going to be Marco Antonio Barrera versus Eric Morales, because those two guys, they were polar opposites of how they fought. You know, Marco Antonio Barrera was a smaller version of a Julio Cesar Chavez, but had a better body attack. Eric Morales, tall, lanky, featherweight, but had a very good jab, but also a very excellent right hand. But when they were hurt, they took it to each other in ways that today's boxers would never even want to get into. I mean, these guys had legit wars that I probably would say shortened their careers, but it validated how, unique these guys were. And so in a sense, when you look at these lower weight classes, I'm just amazed how well that they hit each other, and also the power that they have, despite the fact that they're smaller than a lot of us. I don't know. I'm only 6'2" and 147 pounds. So if I wanted to be, I could be, a middleweight if I would decide to put some muscle on myself. But, with these lower weight classes, they get up in weight. Sometimes they carry their power up to their weights, and sometimes not. But, they always bring it every single night. That's kind of my thoughts on that, though. But so Curtis, what you thought about that trilogy between Morales and Marco Antonio Barrera?
Oh, it's one of the better rivalries in sports boxing history. I have all 3 fights in my collection. There's so many fights. I'm gonna start watching that rivalry again. It was great, man. They put the lighter weight divisions on the map. Morales and Barrera. It was a rivalry. They didn't like each other. They from different parts of Mexico. And it was just like Zamora versus Zarate, and Vasquez versus Marquez. Juan Manuel brother Rafael. That is, they fought 4 times. So these are all the guys that's in a lighter weight division who, didn't get the shine that they so richly deserved.
Yes, indeed. Hyphy, do you have anything you'd like to share about the lower weight classes, or anything that I think you and I talking behind the scenes, you said you had watched something recently, didn't you?
Yeah, what I'm gonna say about not only just like the lower weight classes, but just weight classes that don't get talked about in general. And you just said it a few minutes ago, LDBC is kind of guilty of not promoting other weight classes. I say we all guilty in general, because it's like a cycle as far as how things work with this whole boxing coverage. All right, if you make a video about certain fights, for example, like if you talk about like the WBSS, a lot of people don't even click on those videos because it's just no interest. And then in return, the people that make videos, they give less attention to those videos because they're not peaking so much. So it's like we all pretty much in the same, it's all of our faults when, these guys don't get coverage. Yeah, you could look on your YouTube feed and you would definitely see a certain few fighters being talked about. I mean, goddamn, BFTV made a whole damn page, and that's cracking off only like 2 boxers to talk about, tell you the truth. So a lot of people just, do get caught up in talking about the same type of stuff. But at the same time, I say I'm guilty of it too, because usually when boxing is dead, I just leave boxing alone in general. We like other stuff, for example, kung fu, but yeah, it does get pretty repetitive. So these other divisions, they do need to be acknowledged. As we talking about, it's a lot of good fights at the lower weight divisions, but I'm gonna blame it on the promoters and these networks too, because like a lot of these fights, you don't even be knowing about these fights because they get absolutely no promotion. You definitely can't sell these fights to casuals. Like these weight divisions were really never like carrying the sport for casual fans. Us hardcore fans, yeah, we watch them, but it's like it's just not going to captivate the casual fans. So that's why you still not going to see them putting these fights to headline cards on TV and stuff. So it's like we all guilty to a point, and it is pretty messed up that the lower weight divisions, they don't get paid enough. You damn near never see the cruiserweights on TV. So it's a trend that goes on, but at the same time, we need those weight divisions when it's times like this, when there's nothing else going on in the divisions that we like the most. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that. We all guilty of it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Um, you know, one thing that I could say about that, Abel mentioned the Morales and Barrera trilogy. One thing that was great about the fire there, the action was never stale. It was like, for the first time, you had these two men that you could call their fight a pillar to post type action match. These guys were like literally banging each other around the ring, but not necessarily like slugging. There was a lot of skill and everything that went on, but also a lot of passion because they had some type of, beef or something behind the scenes and everything. And I think our pal out there, El Chinito, says he could tell us what it was, whatever that real beef was. And I would like to know because I didn't know those guys, outside the ring and what may have stirred those fires. But would anybody on the panel be interested in finding out what El Chinito has to say about that?
Oh yeah, man, because I want to know, man. I always knew they didn't like each other. Maybe Chanito can tell me. Didn't Barrera come from a well-to-do family in different parts of Mexico that they didn't like each other? Him and Morales, you can correct me on that. You will know more than me, but I knew the way they fought with fervor. They didn't like each other. I just never knew how the beef started.
Well, I could probably guess it's probably due to like cultural backgrounds because Barrera was born in Mexico City and Morales grew up in Tijuana, and I think that kind of cultural background played a significant role of how those two guys envy each other because Morales saw Barrera as a spoiled brat that got more attention and recognition. And Morales was undefeated and was rising in the rankings, but never got any shine, and that didn't get any credit until those two fought each other back in 2000.
Well, Hyphy, do us a favor and read El Chinito's last two comments in the chat. It kind of sheds a little more light on the subject. Hyphy, you there?
Yeah, I was taking myself off mute.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you said read what he's talking about.
El
Yeah, he said that
last two comments kind of sheds a little more light on the Barrera Morales beef. Just read it out for us.
Yeah, he was talking about the beef had started over a soccer game when Morales had I guess he fouled Barrera and Barrera got mad and he like insulted Morales. So after that they started to scrap and shit. From there they really didn't like each other. And then after that it just kind of evolved into a north versus Mexico, north versus south type of little regional thing. But like Morales, he always thought that Barrera was cocky and arrogant since he came from like a middle class family. So,
dude, so I tell you, man, Abel was right on the money.
Hey,
dude, that is so funny, man, because if you're on the outside looking in at stuff like that, you find it funny and hilarious. But man, do you know those people? They can get involved in that, and it becomes like the Hatfields and the McCoys, man. It's ridiculous how that can turn.
But you know what the funny part is? During their second fight in the press conference, like Barrera and Morales like stood toe to toe with each other, and then after that, Barrera just like swung at him in the face, and then I didn't know how Morales stood up, but then they were starting swinging at each other during the press conference, and then it was like, what the fuck? Oh man.
Yeah, those guys, they had legitimate beef, but what was interesting was that they still put on good fights. It was like in the ring, they, they didn't even resort to like dirty tactics like fouling and stuff. They fought, man. It was like, I'm a better fighter than you are. And they brought their A games to each other, man. It was like watching Ward and Gotti. You know, it's like their styles just meshed perfectly. At some points, one guy boxed. At other points, he slugged, and vice versa. It was really, man. That's a trilogy that we should revisit one Friday night and just talk about the three fights. I think I'll put that on the schedule, Curtis. That we can put something like that together to pay homage to those type of fights. You know, trilogies like that. So
Right.
you know.
But you know, the big difference between those two trilogy was with Gaddy and Ward. Those two guys had a genuine respect for one another to almost like a brotherhood. With Barrera and Morales, even after the third fight, because you got to remember, after the third fight, you know, Morales threw a water bottle at Barrera's father, and then Barrera was just almost like it was before they even announced the decision. But Barrera wanted to take off Morales' head for throwing a water bottle at his father. And then once they announced that Barrera was the winner, he basically gave him the middle finger after that.
Wow, that is something, man. That is something to be said. Right now, I want to take a moment, guys, to just pause and give a shout out to our subscribers to Stormy B Man channel. We have had a couple of new people subscribe to me this evening. King Louis, he's in the chat. I want to say, respect to him. He signed up. He subscribed to the Stormy B Man channel, and we had a few others earlier today. I started this channel out in late January, which I basically just use my channel to store videos that I comb the internet, stuff that I like, different things. And then after I got introduced to the LDBC and their viewpoints on boxing and how they were covering the sport, and then a few others outside the LDBC, just watching boxing videos in general. And I got excited and I said, man, I want to do a channel too, but not to be competitive, but just to continue to talk about boxing. Like when everybody else didn't have anything going on, I wanted people to come and talk with me or whatever. So that's what inspired me. And since January, the channel has really grown, and it has. I think I'm up to 139 subscribers right now, 138, something like that. Which I just want to say salute to everybody who has found this worth their time, including everyone who's on the panel this evening. I just want to say thanks to everybody because you're giving me another outlet, another way to share, and people that are across the country, in other parts of the world or whatever, they come on and chat. It's just a wonderful experience for someone who loves boxing like I do. I coached boxing here in Chicago on the amateur circuit for over 14 years. And I had really had a strong interest in it. And sometimes when you just want to talk boxing with people, some people would be like, well, I like a boxing every once in a while because it's an Ali fight or something, or it's Tyson or something. But just not like the basics. Like we talk about basics in the boxing community here online, and it's nice and refreshing to have that. So I just want to say, I really love you brothers for helping me and supporting me like that, and other channels that have shouted me out and asked subscribers on their channels to come and subscribe to Stormy B Man. There have been people like Junior the Truth. There have been people like the Cali Enigma, 78, all of these brothers who don't have to do that. And I wasn't like, shaking their pants leg, asking them to do that, but they did it, and I just want to say thanks and respect to everybody who has shown me that kind of love and interest. And I hope that we can continue to bring quality to the airwaves out here for that. So I'm sorry. I just wanted to say those things. If anybody on the panel has something they'd like to say, we could go straight across the board and say,
I mean, I'm gonna go. We supposed to support each other. This is a great platform that formed into a brotherhood where we could talk about boxing and other things, and get to know each other. Some people form, personal relationships with each other. They talk behind the scenes, and that's a good thing. You're not always going to get great chemistry. That's just how it works naturally, But it's certain people you meet and you have a chemistry, and that's a great thing, man, because it's more about brotherhood than boxing. Boxing just the icing on the cake. We done talked about different things in the chat, joke with each other, and talked about music and movies and so on. So when we can have a platform like YouTube, we take full advantage of it. I mean, it may be a little oversaturated. Certain channels deserve more shine. I truly believe that, and so I'm always going to support. I don't look for numbers and ego. People give me accolades about my boxing knowledge, which I greatly appreciate. But if you know me on my show, I like to interact with the chat, and like we doing tonight. So that's you want to make everybody feel included, like you had a round table.
Agreed. And I'll say this too, because I'm also working on my thing too as well. Boxing is a secondary thing for me. Obviously, most of you guys know basketball is my primary thing. But the thing is this though too. You also have to be able to have the ability to diverse and contribute and distribute what you want to discuss about to the people who are involved in your live streams too. You know, you always got to make sure you have subscribers that are going to give you the best feedback, but also give you constructive feedback to try to help you improve what you're trying to accomplish as a channel too. Guys like Curtis Anderson, Stormy himself, and Hyphy as well. Always give me good advice of how to try to approach my channel and things of that sort, and also give me good assessments too. I actually learned from Hyphy this week that I'm actually a Chauncey Bills, like a point guard type of thing, because I like to allow the conversation to flow, that kind of thing. And I actually like that. I actually really like that at all. But the point is this, we're here to try to give our subscribers, what they really will want to hear about boxing and also history and things of that sort. But also, you gotta be willing to, give the stuff that people need to hear, so we can at least progress and move, as a society too. Because there's a difference between giving the people what they want, but giving the people what they need, so that way they can progress, moving forward. That kind of thing.
absolutely, man. I agree with that 100%. And thank you for that, because that is very true. The differences between what the people need and what the people want. What they want is always out there and available, but what they need is always at a premium and it's at a minimum. So it's like, when I say premium, it's of the most importance, and at the minimum is very, very little shared. So I do respect what you just said. Odd fella, do you have something you like to say, brother?
Yeah, once again, it's always good. It's lovely to be able to talk with a brotherhood about, a sport you love. I'm like I said, I always say greetings from the north side. North side being I'm in Canada. You know,
Well,
dig?
just so you know, we're not closing it out yet. We're just commenting on
No,
the,
no, no, no. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I'm just,
I don't want you to think we shut it down yet. We still got a
I'm
little
just,
more to roll with, bro.
yeah, yeah. I'm just building. I'm just building. So, yeah, I'm from Canada, so you know what I mean. It's few and far between. You know what I mean. It's few and far between. I get, to talk with people. You know what I mean. With that good boxing talk. You know what I mean, with certain people. that actually have the knowledge of boxing that I can go back and forth with. So it's good to have have a place, where you can come to, and discuss these topics and whatnot. And at the same time, for our subscribers and viewers, they'll be able to get something off of that too, as well. In the dig. So yeah, we just need to continue keep on doing what we're doing in the dig. And yeah, that's my take. That's what I got to say about that.
Hey, Stormy B man, after you get done with Hyphy, there's a question that El Tanito wants Curtis to ask about.
Okay, Hypey, you got some words on that? What we were just touching on?
No, he could go ahead and get right into his question. We could go ahead to that.
Okay, go ahead with the question then, please.
Okay, this is a question from El Tanito. He wants to ask Curtis about the Chavez versus Rosario fight and what he remembers from that fight.
Oh man, I remember that fight like it was yesterday, man. That was Chavez Sr. at his best. He methodically chopped down Rosario, man, who was a dangerous fighter, but a very inconsistent fighter. He could look devastating like he did against Livingston Bramble, or he could look pedestrian like he did against Juan Nazario, or the Japanese guy who he lost his title in Mexico. I forgot the guy's name, man. He got knocked out in the first round. But Rosario was a strange fighter, man, because sometimes, man, he looked devastated. He had a great rivalry with another Mexican fighter, Ramirez, Jose Luis Ramirez. But the Chavez fight, that was Chavez, one of his best fights. He was great that night, man. And to me, there's always a signature fight where a fighter is very good and they turn great. And I think that night, did it for him. He turned great. You know, he closed Rosario eye. I remember that fight because Tyson and Rosario was teammates. Well, stablemates, I should say. And he walked Rosario in the ring, and that didn't help, of course. Every time Tyson walks somebody in the ring, they get the big breaks beat off him. But Chavez, the great fighter, man. That was his best fight, man. He was in his absolute prime, and he beat the hell out of Rosario that night.
Awesome.
Wow. Hey, Kurt, I got a question for you, piggybacking off of that. Would you say that Chavez equally beat the fight out of Rosario and Meldrick Taylor, who were both, highly touted fighters when he went in against them?
He beat the fight out of Taylor because Taylor was never the same. Rosario, you could say that, but Rosario was his own worst enemy because he lacked discipline. He liked to party and stuff. There's only a couple of times where he really dedicated himself, but not to take away from Chavez, because he would have lost to Chavez anyway. It was just the wrong style. Rosario trying to land his landed his vaulted left hook, but Chavez just walked right through him, man, and broke him down to the body and then wore him down and then took him out. So Taylor, he did, and the way he did with Rosario too. But Rosario, when you're a fighter, you try to get the best out of your ability by remaining disciplined. And but he wasn't beating Chavez anyway.
Hey, Curtis, let me ask you this though. Did you? What's your thought about when Richard Steele stopped the fight with about 5 seconds to go in the final round against Chavez?
Well, a lot of people got on him, and stuff, and there was 2 seconds left. And when he did ask, "Are you okay?" he did nod a little bit, but Richard Steele, he just decided to stop the fight, and get and scored a knockout for Chavez. But even if Mildred Taylor would have won that fight in the long run, he still lost, because I don't think he would have been the same fighter. So in retrospect, Mildred Taylor ain't had nothing to show for it. All that work he put in, but he put himself in that situation, and Lou Duva too, because Lou Duva told him to be aggressive, and you gotta win this round and fight aggressive. And he had to do that. All he had to do was run around the ring. He would have had to fight because he was way ahead. But he got bad instructions, and Taylor wasn't a smart guy anyway. He had a very low boxing IQ.
Agreed.
That's the first time I've ever heard that put that way, and it's very succinct, because for as talented as he was as a fighter, Meldrick Taylor was not the smartest or sharpest knife in the drawer, and I would agree with that. Imagine if Pernell Whitaker had Meldrick's skills. Dude, that would have been like, wow, you know? But you're absolutely right about that. Meldrick had a tendency to fall into the thing of like just, wade in instead of using, whatever it is his attributes were, whether it was his movement or his hand speed or whatever. He would just wade in and want and relish contact. And you have to understand that even as successful as he looked in the matches that he won, not talking about the Chavez fight at all, way before that, he's taking hits in the gym, And so if he's getting connected in the gym, that's where you really get the fight taken out of you. And if you have to happen to have it rough in actual combat, in competition in the ring, that's a double whammy. So we don't know what type of training regimen that Lou Duva and those guys put him through training for Chavez. But can you imagine going through that and then getting in there and facing what ended up becoming the outcome? Terrible, terrible.
I definitely agree with that as well, though. But I think also El Janito has another question too for the panel as well. Top 3 body punchers of all time.
I'll take that. Mike McCollum, young Mike Tyson, and Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. That's 3. But an honorable mention goes to Roberto Duran and Gerald McClellan.
I'm actually I'll probably take 2 of the 3. I might put who was the last 2? Who honorable mention you mentioned, Curtis?
Roberto Duran and Gerald McClellan.
Yeah, I might put Gerald. I probably put Roberto Duran above Mike Tyson there because Roberto Duran, when he was in the lower weight class, he was nasty. He was nasty in the inside though. He got Sugar Ray and ended the fight off his normal game plan in the first fight. That's hard to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't forget Mike Tyson. See, I love Mike Tyson when he had that bald spot in his head. And that comes from training and stuff like that. He was, because he used to make people urinate blood, like Ruddock and Tyrell Biggs when he said, he made little woman noises. That was the young Mike Tyson.
Hey, Kurt, there was a fight I watched earlier today while I was, cheating at work, trying to do boxing and stuff. And it was just, highlights of Tyson's fight against Jose Ribalta. That was one of Tyson's most dominant and dynamic performances. Boy, he was going to town on Ribalta, and Ribalta could take it. That's what was interesting, because Tyson was hitting him with some what they call them, bowling balls or whatever. He was just brutalizing the guy, but the guy was very durable. And the body attack, the head attack, cutting off the ring. I don't think I've ever seen Tyson that active in any other fight. He was really on top of that guy.
Mm-hmm. I remember that fight like it was yesterday.
Tyson looked like the best heavyweight of modern era. That Tyson.
Yep.
Wow. Let's see. It says we got 7 people out there. I don't see anybody else leaving comments except for El Chinito. But if anybody else out there participating in the chat want to ask questions, we are open to respond to you. So please don't feel like you are there and we won't get to you or whatever. We're definitely looking for more people to interact from the chat. In the meantime, while we wait for some of those comments to come in, hopefully, I like to take a moment and go around to one of our segments that I created, and it's called B-Man's Bullet Points and Kurt's Counterpoints. And the subject of the segment this evening will be 15 round fights over 12 round championship fights. The pros and cons, and should the 15 rounders be brought back, or should they remain like it was? Was it good having 15 rounds, or is it better having 12? So we're gonna just kind of bounce it back off, and we'll also allow the panel to participate. But Kurt and I, we can start it out with our positions and views, giving both pros and cons on both sides of the issue of 15 round fights over 12 round fights. Kurt, would you like to go first, or would you like me to go first?
Well, I'll go first. I like to see it 15 round fights again. That the law of boxing in the past, the great fights, it just seemed 15 rounds was a benchmark. Those are what you call the championship rounds, 13, 14, and 15. There was a lot of great fights, and in the last round or the 14th round, you had Leonard Hearns and you had Holmes and Norton, just to name a few. Frazier and Ali, the first fight, that the infamous knockdown, the Frazier left hook. Holmes and Cooney was what ended up late. So you always had great fights. And I believe it should be 15 rounds. It's a benchmark. It's boxing history. But because of the Mancini Dooku Kim fight, they reduced it to 12. And in 15 rounds, more importantly, will take away draws. It would eliminate that. Leonard Duran was a fierce 15 round fight. So I say they should bring back 15 rounds is only right. I call that real boxing, because 12 rounds, you're susceptible to a draw because it's an even number. And like I said, the action, 2 men are tired, always made for great fights. And the championship round, go back and look at Holmes and Norton, when the mouthpieces was falling out, so, it would be a treat for a boxing fan, because a lot of fighters would train differently and they would take the sport more seriously, because they would know they would have to really, really dig deep, going to championship rounds. That's a big difference, those 3 rounds, because I've seen a lot of fighters get tired after 12 rounds, so that's why they just didn't name a number and say, okay, we're going to reduce it to 12. They did that on purpose, because late in the fight, fighters are vulnerable, they're tired, and when you're tired, you don't think as well as you did when you're not tired. So they should bring back 15 rounds, because that's what I call real, true boxing, in the championship rounds.
Okay. A counterpoint that I would have on that, and it's not very many, but like, I think that fans of today would be disinterested in extended round fights, because we are such a fast food type environment now, where we just want everything quick, quick, quick. And the 12 rounds give people a reason, like, you got 12 rounds or less to work with, and they're kind of content with that. And also the fans seem to hide behind the the aspect of being asked to be disciplined for a duration, you know. So it's like that's just something that I'm seeing in our society more, but that doesn't mean that I think that's a good thing. It's just a counterpoint issue that I have come up with when I was mulling over the segment. And revisiting the issue over fighters with you know, their overall well-being, like, you know, they were originally trying to attach that rule to the weight draining and rehydration and stuff like that, which I don't think that played much of. I don't think there's a lot of fighters that come out of a 15 round championship match with brain damage. I'm sorry that, but the brain damage happens for other reasons and things like that, or brain injury, I would say. But typically, the fighters who were able to go beyond 12 when the fights were scheduled for longer periods, that was because of conditioning and things like that. Experience, a lot of that played into it. So I don't have a lot of cons to argue against that point, but I do have a few bullet points to add to that, you know. And El Chinito actually said one in the chat. He says that it separated the the men from the boys, so to speak, you know, and that was true because a lot of pretenders, and you don't usually hear that terminology nowadays, but pretenders for world titles, um, they were always considered guys who got shots but really didn't deserve them or whatever. Those guys never went into the 15th round. Never. You know, they were always maybe 12 or 13. That was it. But when you got to 13 through 15, that was really where the true champions took people out to drown. And I think Kurt would agree to that. The best of the fighters in history performed at a higher level when they got beyond the 12th round. Would you agree with that, Kurt?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, because the better fighters, they knew how to suck it up. You know, they had a reservoir well. They know how to pace themselves, and so the better fighters, like Ali was always tired late in the fight, but his moxie and savvy got him through those brutal fights with Ali and Frazier 3, and the Shavers fight. The only fighters from this era that can fight 15 rounds like that would be Mayweather, because he was always in tremendous shape.
Yeah, I mean, look at the fight that was a championship match between uh, Ken Norton and Larry Holmes. You know, 15 rounds for the WBC heavyweight title. That fight was such a dynamic fight, and it took different turns. Holmes started out very strongly, and he was leading the way with his jab, but Norton was putting the pressure on, and by like rounds 4 or 5 through 8 and 9, Ken Norton had caught up to him and even the fight out through his pressure and body work and, being physical and things like that. And then when it got into the last quarter of the fight, it was like, you know, skills and everything went out the window. Then it became a match of wills, which guy wanted it the most and everything. And that fight was really a great heavyweight championship fight, even though it's not talked about as much as some of the other more popular names. But the 15 round championship fight between Ken Norton and Larry Holmes for the WBC heavyweight championship fight, it was a classic and a fight that if no one's ever really taken the time to sit down and watch it, you should watch it just once and just admire the skill set that these men brought and the courage and the ambitious drive, champion quality drive that they both reflected through that match. Um, Odd fella, do you see or have any points that you would like to make regarding the subject of the segment, 15 rounds over 12 rounds, pros and cons, that Kurt and I introduced?
Um, yeah, I like what I heard. I have both pros and cons to the argument with regards to the 15 rounds and whatnot. And but to think if 15 rounds was re-implemented, how it would expose so many of the current belt holders and so-called champions that are out there today. Um, I don't know many, especially you know, one glaring one, AJ in the heavyweight division. I don't believe he could be able to do 15 rounder. I mean, in these present days. But one thing, the only drawback I could see with if 15 rounds was re-implemented, fighters would then adapt, and the only drawback I could envision is if these fighters would maybe the styles would start to change up where they're not putting the same amount of output with regards to throwing punches. You see more posing in the ring because they're trying to conserve more energies to go over the duration of 15 rounds in a day. Because I don't think these. Uh, the- you look back at the fights back in the day, um, they it seems like that it was action packed from round one to round 15. You know, dig like there was punches being thrown. Not to say that it was just like straight uh, all through and through, but I mean there was effort.
Yes, I agree. Um, you know, the point of the efforts, there one of the things like the fight I mentioned, Norton and Holmes, you could see certain spots, and even Ali when he was fighting in 15 round fights, you could see certain
Was
spots.
implemented in today's boxing. These boxers would probably just try to you know what I mean, not put as much effort into to conserve the energy.
Yeah, as I was saying, that Ali, they would find spots where they could rest, and they didn't rest by like not doing anything, but they would take something off their shots. They would, use moments to, find space and distance and things like that, kill the clock in certain kinds of ways full of moxie. You don't see that now because, like I said, we're that fast food type environment now where everybody is like working at a frenetic pace, but also people who don't have substance, they get exposed because of what's not there, what's vacant. Abel, what do you think about this? The pros and cons of the 15 round fights?
Well, the thing with the 15 round fights is that, for one, it would eliminate the draw. Two, it would force a lot of the boxers to work on more of their conditioning and finding ways to preserve their energy more. Because what I see in most 12 round fights is that, they'll use a lot of their energy in the early rounds to try to get the opponent out of there, but they don't think things throughout the fight. And sometimes a lot of fighters don't adjust very well. That they take a lot of their time, and sometimes they lose a lot of rounds that way. So having 15 rounds, would really help eliminate that. But also, it would force a lot of the boxers to, as like I was saying, like they would try to condition themselves better, because a 15 round boxing match is a long marathon where you had to be sure that you're not wasting too much energy, and then you're not giving your opponent the same look every time, because if you do that, they can pounce on it too. But unfortunately, the downside is that going 15 rounds is a brutal way of having another boxer getting hurt out there. This is why after the Mancini fight, that the 12 round boxing match became implemented, because we already know how dangerous the sport was, but you add the 15 rounds, considering the amount of blows that a fighter would take, it basically was a death sentence, and that's why they switched it to 12 rounds in the late 80s. But I'm in favor of the 15 round thing, because it would force a lot of the boxers to find different ways to condition themselves and try to preserve their energy throughout the fight.
Well, I want to come back to that where you mentioned Ray Mancini, but I like to go to Hyphy and ask Hyphy, does he have enough background and interest that about the 15 round fights and the pros and cons to it over 12 round fights that we now know and see regularly of today? You got anything to say about that, Hyphy? Hyphy, you there, or you busy? You might have dropped off for a minute. He might be busy. What I was going to say about the Mancini thing, and Kurt might want to say something right behind this. I think the Mancini thing was used in the events of the Dooku Kim fight and the results of what happened. If you ask me, being a boxing coach, the burden falls on the trainers and the cornermen of Dooku Kim more than anyone, because they kept putting that man out there. And there comes a point where a trainer has to be able to recognize in his fighter when he's empty, when his tank is empty, or he's not right, or he's behaving, in a manner of which, even if you're giving him instructions, he can't follow them. He's not. It's like there has to be a burden of responsibility on the corner, and that man kept being sent out there, and he was taking brutal punishment, and the punishment was internal. You don't always see it physically, but yeah, his eyes were swollen shut, and he looked pretty battered from a regular type of rough fight. But they should have been able to see what was going on with him and identify certain things with their fighter. I kind of likened it to when Badu Jack was fighting Maurice Brown recently and suffered the bad cut and kept being sent out there when his head was open like a lake. And I mean, like, why are you still sending this man out there like that? He's not going to win this fight. He's not. And it's like they just push him back out there for another round. And I hate to see that, man. When the corner can't stop something, you have to be able to protect the fighter, because if the fighter quits, everybody labels him a quitter. But if the cornermen stop, the fighter still has a little bit of something that's in reserve, that people say, well, maybe he could have possibly come back if the coach didn't stop it or whatever. But the coach will take the burden, of having stopped it or saving his fighter or rescuing his fighter under dire circumstances. What do you say, Kurt?
Yeah, that's I agree with that. I mean, it's the trainer job to read his fighter's body language. Like we talked about Gerald McClellan. You're supposed to study your fighter, not only implement a game plan, but to get him out of trouble. In between rounds, look at his motor skills, see if he's in distress, you know, um, I mean duress, and when you don't do that, like Dooku Kim, they say he had a fight 3 weeks before in another country. So, I do blame the trainers. You know, hey, you live to fight another day. Look what the state Gerald is in now, Gerald McClellan. You know, if he would have just quit on the stool and didn't explain why he did that, you know, nobody, you know, people would have been, you know, suspicious, but you know, it's not for us to judge him. He put his life on his line, and I hate to say it, he's a vegetable. You know, so if he would have quit on the stool and said something was wrong, and then you know, and got a rematch, then we would have understood. You know, he didn't know. He a warrior. He just went out there and fought, and didn't start blinking his eyes. But that's the trainer. I put that on the trainer. You supposed to be like Barry Hunter when Lamont Peterson was getting bludgeoned by Spence. He said, "I don't like this. I don't like that's a mark of a good trainer. I'm gonna stop this." You know, I was watching Tony and Holyfield when the trainer said, "You getting hit with too many right hands, champ. I got to stop this." So you know, so I agree with you.
Hey, can I say one more thing there too, to go along with what Curtis just said there too? You know, when people tend to forget that in the Thrill in the Manila fight, you know, Eddie Fudge basically said, listen, if you don't go look good in this 14th round, we're gonna stop the fight. After the 14th round, you know, Frazier wanted to get back in there because he felt like that Ali was getting ready to quit, and he was going to quit. But Eddie Fudge looked at Joe's right eye, and you know his eye was closed and shut real bad, and so he basically did the natural reaction and protected his fighter too. You know, when you talked about Tony versus Holyfield, I remember that fight too, where Don Turner said, "Hey," he said, "Hey, champ, are you listening? You got to stop voiding those right hands. Listen, I'm gonna stop the fight. I cared too much about you to see you get hurt like this. These are right hands you should not be taking." Y'all remember that, guys?
Yep.
Yes, sir. I remember it. Holyfield was my favorite fighter, so I know I remember it.
You know, and I love Holyfield, but he was a great warrior. But he should have retired a long time ago. You know, because his warrior pride was became his greatest weakness at the back end of his career.
Yes, I agree. I agree. So I don't know. Did Hyphy come back? Hyphy, are you there?
Yeah, he's still on mute. I think he's probably busy at the moment, though.
Yeah, he's busy.
Yeah, no, I'm still here. I'm just mad. I'm in so much goddamn traffic right now. I'm listening.
LA
Yeah.
traffic, baby.
Damn LA traffic, man.
Hey,
Hyphy, did you have anything to share on what we were just talking about? Either the pros and cons of 12 rounds over 15 rounds, or vice versa, or even in
Well,
what we
yeah,
were
let me
just.
let me go in on that. This is I guess it's kind of related to the rounds. Now I know why everybody is kind of upset with the 12 rounds. You know, it's an even number, and obviously you can see what happened. As of lately, we've been getting these fights. It's always a draw, so you can get more money out of them. Now, see, that's a damn shame because you gotta have fights, and you gotta make them a draw, so you could get another fight, as opposed to just having the fighters. If one fighter lose, hey, you know, the one fighter win a close fight, they say, all right, look, we could do a rematch. So that's one reason why people want to see an odd number of rounds. And then this is a thing that I got a problem with. Like, it's like these judges, it's like it's illegal for them to give a even round, a 10-10 round. That's another thing that mess it up too, because you know, like I feel like these judges, they get into the point, okay, well, this round was even. Oh, this round it was exactly the same, so let me get a round to this guy because it's an even fight. And it's like people don't give 10-10 rounds when it's clear as day. Like the first two rounds of a fight, sometimes those be just straight 10-10 rounds, and judges don't do 10-10 rounds no more for whatever reason.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? You make a great point, Hyphy, about the scoring. I can remember when televised fights would come on, whether it was on regular local stations like CBS, NBC, or ABC, or even on cable with Showtime and HBO or ESPN, before the bouts, they would have a color commentator explain to you the scoring system of the fight. A 10-point must system where, you know, a fighter can be judged on ring generalship, effective aggressiveness, and things of that nature. And it's like they no longer do that. And the funny thing about it is you're now watching a fight with your own assessment visibly, like, I think this guy won because he tagged his face 3 good times in that round. But maybe he landed those 3 good punches to someone's face, but the other guy controlled the tempo of the round. And that has become something where people now begin to say all the time, a robbery, a robbery, a robbery. Where in actuality, the scoring system, most casual observers don't know how boxing is scored. They really don't, because it's no longer presented to them and explained to them. So they feel like they're not getting the results that they see visibly because they're not looking at how a fight is scored. Kurt could tell you guys about fighters in history like who won rounds without throwing a punch and things like that. But you have to understand there's a certain amount of technical capability and know-how to be able to even pull something like that off. Roy Jones, when he fought what was his name? They had the neck injury. What was his name, Kurt?
Had the neck injury.
Yeah. What's his name? The Italian kid that had his.
Oh, talk about Vinny Pazienza.
Vinny Pazienza won. Vinny Pazienza didn't even land a punch on Roy in a round. It was like he just dominated the guy. The guy didn't even land a shot on him. It was like, but again, the casual observer doesn't know what they're looking at as far as scoring in boxing. And when you had odd number rounds or a championship 15 rounds, it had to come to a final conclusion. You rarely saw a draw or something like that in a 15-round fight. But it's very convenient and easy now, especially since they don't tell you how the fights are scored. Because if you watch a fight, even like the championship fight between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, you would probably be led to think that Fury just dominated and won all the rounds that Deontay didn't knock him down in. And that's not true. Deontay had his fair share of effective aggressiveness and scoring points and punches with body shots and stuff throughout the fight. But it's like it appeared that, on the consensus that Fury did much more. But you also have to look at it like this. Fury was the guy that was moving away too. So how can you be doing much more if you're moving away from the guy? So again, this is what we're talking about. And that's why we like to put it out there so we could collectively come together and pass our thoughts on these things. All right, fella, you got something to say?
Hey, well, you're right, Stormy. That's definitely a thing that's just hella annoying. And I could definitely rant about that. But this whole like scoring system, one is no consistent scoring system. Not even within the same commission of the same state for one. And it's just even like the fans, they pick and choose, and it's messed up because like even when you try to get casuals to come into the sport, homie, they obviously they don't really know how to score a fight. And then when a fight doesn't go the way they've seen it, oh, it's a robbery, and it just turns the fans off. It is. It definitely needs to be something done about this scoring, man.
Yeah, it's really up in the air, and it's something that I don't know how it could be fixed quickly. I think it could be fixed, but it won't be fixed quickly. And I do believe the powers that be don't really want to fix it right now because they make more hay out of controversy and everything. And then it gives another narrative of some things that people can hide behind who are participating in the sport. And that's the ugly side of boxing. Very much so. What do you think, Kurt?
I'm sorry. Read the question again. I'm sorry.
No, I was saying as far as this whole thing with the scoring and everything, with the fights, uh, some behind the scenes are enjoying the benefits of it being controversial with splits and draws and things like that. So, if we had more objective scoring, something that you could actually, be held accountable for. Because, like I said, they don't tell you before the fights anymore, like what the 10-point must system is, effective aggressiveness, and ring generalship. The that you used to be awarded on, they don't talk that before the fights anymore. So what do you think about it? And I said I don't see it being turned around anytime soon because they're reaping the benefits of the controversies and whatnot. But it could be fixed, but I don't see it being fixed anytime soon. What do you think?
Oh no, it's not, man. Boxing not the same. It's like a lost art form. Fighters just swing for the fences. If they knock you out, they knock you out. If not, oh well, let's see what happens. They don't go to the body. They don't use an assortment of jabs. Footwork, defense is lacking. A lot of top-notch fighters are easy to hit. See, that didn't happen before, but it's a different day and age, man. They don't hone their craft like they used to. They just try to get by. And plus, you mix in politics with it, you see a lot of bad judging because it's deeper than what you think. They want certain fighters to win, and certain fighters ain't gonna win. If that fighter has more cachet than fighter B, then fighter A is always going to get the decision. Even though he may get dominated and outboxed, they still gonna give it to him. So the dirty politics of boxing will always rear its ugly head.
Agreed, big time. Odd fella, are you still with us, brother? You still off or what? It looks like he's busy still. Um, so I don't know. We have Alex Santos has joined us in the chat, um, and I think he had a comment earlier that I wanted to touch on. Yeah, he said something about. He said the boxers of nowadays would have to get their cardio up like crazy to fight 15 rounds.
Hmm.
And I guess, you know, to a point, that is true because even in an age where we have all of these supplements and things like that fighters can take, one thing that you can't, you know, boost with supplements or whatever is your courage or your desire. If you're a guy who is just happy to make it to the dance, you know, going 15 rounds, that could seem like kind of far. It's like, I don't know, at a certain point, if I can't get him, I'll check out. I'll stay on my stool and say I hurt my shoulder or something. I can see that happening because some guys didn't, in the old fighters of 15 rounds, some of them didn't get going till rounds 8 and 9, right, Kurt?
That's true. That is very true.
So you about winding down because it's coming close to the 10th or 11th, and they just getting wound up. So it's like, boy. So yeah, as far as Alex Santos, when he said that the boxers would need to get that cardio up, they'd have to get that cardio up, but they would also have to get that heart going in a different sense of like being courageous enough to do what's necessary to go the distance. I remember the film Rocky when they, the first one, when he said, "All I want to do is go the distance." Y'all remember that? It wasn't about beating Apollo Creed or anything like that. It was about going the distance. And that's what people used to hang their hat on, you know?
Yep.
Now it's like getting paid. I just want to get paid. It's funny how values change, huh? Abel, you got anything to say, man? Because you had dropped off for a minute.
Nah, I'm good. I think you guys pretty much killed the conversation pretty well. So
Okay. Um, well, I was hoping that our fella come back to us because it's about time that we wrap things up, guys. We've been on here. I think we run a good 2 hours, and I don't want to keep anyone longer than they need to be. And I want to say first and foremost, shout out to the chat, everyone who participated. We tried to get your questions and comments in to keep everything flowing, keep everybody engaged. And I really respect what people have to say. So understand when you come to this channel, when we're doing this show, one of the greater portions of this is the participation of the chat. And I know we only had a handful of people tonight, but if the numbers increase, we still want to be interacting with the chat. We're paying attention to your comments. We might not answer every single comment, but I want to give the acknowledgement that we are paying attention and trying to make this a forum where it's all connected, where we're all involved in this. We're not preaching to you guys. We're sharing and enjoying the whole thing about the sport of boxing with everyone. So I wanted to say that, and I would like to now go across the panel and ask guys for their last words. And hopefully, before we finish that, our fella will show up.
okay, well I'll go first. So then, thanks for inviting me over and chopping up a lot of good stuff about boxing, man. You know, it might be dead at the moment, but we can always reflect back on how great boxing can be. If the guys in today's generation of boxing will have the courage to get in the ring and face each other. You know what I mean? So it's always good to reflect back and learn from the OGs who've been watching it a lot longer than me and have more knowledge of the sport than me too. So I'm always learning something new every day. And the only thing I hope for is just we can keep it going and keep it and just keep on growing. And eventually down the line, people will listen and try to, and learn more about boxing along the way. Anybody else?
Oh,
I'm
I'm
sorry,
sorry.
I was just muted just then, but hey, Kurt, you want to go or?
Yeah, I go. Hey, it's always a pleasure to support my bro, Stormy B Man. We chop it up behind the scenes a lot. We're truly boxing scholars, boxing historians, enthusiasts. I know the sport like the back of my hand. I've seen thousands of fighters, man. Background in boxing in the '80s. Father taught me very well. But I'm always going to support Stormy B, man. He be on my show too. I'll probably do a Kurt Sugar versus the world. Maybe Tuesday night. But I don't think boxers in a drought. It's just another good fight. Easter versus Rancis Bartholomew, April 27th. Showbox is on right now. I forgot all about it. So we just need that star. And it's going to be another star. He's going to have brains like a Mayweather, power like Tyson, athleticism like Roy Jones, moxie and savvy like Sugar Ray Robinson, the will of an Ali and Leonard. He's just not here yet. I don't know who it's going to be, but there's always a guy that comes out of nowhere that's going to have talent that we have never seen before. And it could be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, but it's going to be a fighter that's going to like change the landscape of boxing. I could feel it. We may not know him yet. He may be 5 years old. He may be 10 years old, but we definitely going to have another star. And with social media and the internet, he's going to be as big as ever. Mark my words on that. But thanks, chat. Chanique, those always great questions. I love mixing it up with the chat, and like I always say, same bad time, same bad channel.
Hey, well, I don't know if our fella is back around yet. So I guess I'll go ahead and give mines. Thanks everybody for coming through in the chat. Definitely enjoyed talking to y'all. Kurt, Stormy, definitely enjoyed talking to y'all brothers, of course, even on the chat and behind the scenes. Y'all actually got me in the mood to go watch some Kung Fu. I'm gonna go ahead and do some of that. Hopefully, sometime later on tonight. But yeah, definitely good talking to you guys. As far as the boxing stuff, I can just, like I said earlier, it may be just one of those weeks where our last week we didn't get, such an entertaining fight, or cards, as we would say, so it was nothing to talk about. And then, as far as like the promotion going on for the upcoming fights, it's not going on. But hey, I'm gonna put the responsibility on all of us. That's our job to promote these other fights that's coming up as well. Even if the casual's not into it, we all hardcore boxing fans, so that's our responsibility to be into those fights and talking about them, and just give those fights attention, because those fighters, they work as hard as the other fighters, so they deserve the proper respect as well. I think we're gonna be back next week as well, and y'all will see me around in the chats and everything. So y'all will catch us again, and I'm gonna leave it to Stormy B from here.
Okay, brothers. Odd fella calling last round. Odd fella. I guess the brother might have fallen asleep or something, or he might be watching some boxing over there, I guess. But hey, I want to just say thanks again to everyone who participated this evening on the panel. I see CB Sports TV. I was going to type you a message in the chat, but I'll just tell you over this airwave here. CB Sports TV, I need your information, bro, because I want to have you on. I've been following your content and everything, and I think you definitely have a voice. And I would like to have you on with us when we do the chop session with Stormy B Man. So if you could send me your email, or you can email me where I could get your information. And my email is stormybman@gmail. So it's real simple like that. So you could just email me, and we can chop it up and discuss some things if you like to help us on the channel sometime. So I just wanted to say that. Also, last words. I think that this was a very nice broadcast. This is the fourth chop session, even though I didn't put the number of it on there. But I want to say you brothers have really helped the show be professional. We're kind of finding our groove, and I really like what's happening. And I just want to say thanks so much for everyone who was able to tune in with us tonight. This was another episode of Friday Night Chop Session with Stormy B Man and my co-host Hyphy and Kurt Anderson, Kurt Sugar, as we all know him out here on the YouTube land, and the odd fellow who was so gracious in joining us this evening, and Abel Mahari. So with that, people, I would like to say peace. Have a wonderful weekend, and we look forward to seeing you soon. We're out.
Peace.